For 7 centuries it was the greatest intellectual project in human history. A colossal, beautiful structure in Alexandria, Egypt. We call it the library. But it was more than just books. It was a promise. The promise that humanity could solve any puzzle, cure any disease, and map the infinite. They came here, the giants of thought: Euclid, who wrote the book on geometry; Archimedes, who designed war machines powered only by mirrors and sunlight; Eratosthenes, who, using just shadows and simple math, calculated the Earth's circumference to within a remarkable 1% accuracy. Inside these halls, there were an estimated 1 million scrolls. They didn't just contain history, they contained the future. We are not talking about simple history texts. We are talking about advanced anatomy that was forgotten for 1,000 years. Lost philosophies on justice that could have changed empires. Lost literature that could have redefined art. And then, it was gone. Not lost to time, not ruined by invasion, but burned by choice. The question isn't how it burned. The question is why they needed to kill the person who defended it. This is the story of how a sustained cultural war against knowledge, dogma against discovery, centered on one final, terrifyingly brilliant woman, Hypatia, and how the slow rot of fear cost us everything. The destruction was not a single event. It was a slow, agonizing decline. Historians note the first great wound was inflicted in 48 BCE, when Julius Caesar set fire to the enemy fleet in the harbor, and the blaze spread to an ancillary scroll house. Then came the rising wave of faith. As Rome embraced Christianity, the old Greek curiosity became suspect. The emperor Theodosius began systematically closing pagan temples. The fatal precursor came in 391 AD, the destruction of the Serapeum. This was a major annex of the library, often housing the last great collection of scrolls. A mob, led by the bishop Theophilus, looted and destroyed it. The physical halls were gone. The philosophers were scattered. But the spirit of the library, the intellectual tradition, survived in the lecture halls and the last private schools. And its final, most stubborn torchbearer was Hypatia. She was a Neoplatonist. She taught that truth came through rigorous reason and mathematics, not divine command. She built astonishing astronomical instruments and advised the city's highest political office, the Roman prefect Orestes. She held real power. She was a direct political rival to Bishop Cyril, who succeeded Theophilus. Cyril was ruthless, pushing to consolidate Christian political power over the city. In a patriarchal world where women were silenced, Hypatia's voice was the loudest, most eloquent challenge to the new regime. And the men in power could not tolerate it. The final act of the tragedy was not an accident. It was a calculated removal. Hypatia was a political target. By destroying her, Cyril crippled his rival, Orestes, and eliminated the final, powerful symbol of secular authority in Alexandria. On a March morning in 415 AD, the tension exploded. A furious mob, incited by whispers and malice, surrounded Hypatia's chariot. Think about this. The most brilliant mind in the Western world at that time, a mathematician whose works were respected globally, was reduced to a symbol of hate. They dragged her through the streets. They pulled her into a church, a place meant for sanctuary. They stripped her. They tortured her. They used broken roof tiles and oyster shells to tear her flesh from her bones. This wasn't just murder. It was symbolic destruction. The brutal, visceral nature of her death was meant to terrify any other intellectual, any other woman, who dared to step outside the prescribed lines of dogma. After they killed her, they burned her body. And then, they turned to the scrolls, the final, scattered remnants of the Alexandrian tradition. The fire spread. It was the final, devastating act of cultural self-sabotage. Hypatia's death and the final burning plunged the region into what historians often call the Dark Ages, a period of intellectual stagnation that lasted for 1,000 years. We don't just mourn the lost scrolls. We mourn the lost time. How many generations died from curable diseases? How long did scientific progress stall because the fundamental texts were ashes? It's a terrifying lesson. Civilizations do not collapse because they lack knowledge. They collapse when they reject knowledge in favor of comforting, rigid dogma. When you silence the philosopher, when you burn the library, and when you violently target the powerful, brilliant women who dared to teach the truth, you do not destroy history. You destroy the future. Every empire ends, but the memory of Alexandria reminds us, the deepest wounds are always self-inflicted. Welcome to the Fallen Citadel.